Canterbury, I'm Mike Yardley. Welcome to this Newsmakers Extra. In the wake of the glow of the Ellerslie Flower Show, we thought it would be a timely opportunity to focus on the state of our tourism industry. Later, we are going to look at a new program that seeks to accentuate our region's green credentials. But first up, my special guest is the Chief Executive of Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism, Christine Prince. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
I suppose we should start on the global recession front. I read a couple of days ago that the United Nations estimates that worldwide tourism dropped 4% in 2009. What about the local report card? How have we fared?
Yeah, in fact, that there have been obviously sort of declines around the world, but if we first take New Zealand as a whole, in fact, it was estimated that our numbers would go down about 10% over 2009. But at the end of the year, the final sort of numbers revealed that tourism had actually only dipped by 1%. So compared to many other countries, we've been pretty resilient, and that, you know, follows through on a local level as well.
How buoyant has the summer season been for the region?
Well, in fact, the airport have just put out some very encouraging figures that they have actually had the busiest February in history.
Wow.
So the international arrivals went up by about 6% and domestic arrivals by 5%. So that's very encouraging. You still find that there's you know, some mixed reports coming out of the industry because we've had such a significant change in the mix of our visitors. Some of the long-haul markets, such as the UK, which would be one of our highest spending markets, have been, you know, hit harder, whereas we've had great numbers coming out of Australia. But at the end of the day, they do spend less time here and don't spend as much. So we need to get more Australians, you know, to make up for the shortfall in some of the other markets.
Sure. What about the Asian market, Christine?
Well, the Asian markets have been particularly tough, and you find that in our tourism, of course, we're very much impacted by capacities and airlines. And, you know, and it's basically, you know, if the plane's not coming in, then you just don't get the numbers. And we have seen some of the capacities dropping out of those markets. Having said that, we've had at least some positive signs come through just in recent months. Then I know we've had some good figures out of Japan, and also China's been more promising as well.
Of course, we're into the home straight of the annual summer cruise ship visit season. How busy has Lyttelton been over the summer?
Well, yeah, it has been another busy season, and I'm sure everybody around us, you know, seen our visitors. You can really tell, you know, the cruise ship days when you're wandering around Christchurch, which is great. We've had about the same amount of passengers through as last year, which again is fantastic because, you know, it is a recessionary period, and again, cruise has been impacted quite significantly around the world. And, you know, the figures are looking very good. Coming into, if we look at bookings for next season and the season after.
Yeah. Is it a lucrative part of the tourism trade? I mean, in terms of general numbers, bums on seats, to what extent does the cruise market play a role?
Well, it is an important component, and when you add up the value to New Zealand as a whole, it is significant. We find that obviously we've got visitors that are coming in for a day.
Yes.
And so it is more limited, obviously, in terms of what our visitors have got time to do. And we'd have to reflect that it has been tougher this season, that our visitors, you know, via cruise, again, we've got a slightly different mix and perhaps they're not spending as much. So that's certainly one of our missions for next year, to really work to, you know, get those expenditure levels up again.
It would appear that Christchurch is growing in stature as a destination of choice amongst fellow New Zealanders. Do you think there is movement, favourable movement in the domestic market?
Yeah, I think that we are starting to see that, and ironically, it's been perhaps sometimes tougher to get New Zealanders, especially from the North Island,
yes,
into Christchurch and the region than it is to get Australians. You know, we've perhaps just had some of the stereotypes, some of the traditional images of Christchurch being quite conservative, and you know, people really grappling as to why they would visit the region.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we're just really starting to make some inroads in that area. I think that the very strong events programme the council has, with obviously the likes of Ellerslie, Cut and Show Week, the World Buskers Festival, it all helps.
I have noticed with Ellerslie behind us for another year that all of the motels around Believ, as an example, had the no vacancy signs day in, day out, which would suggest it does play a role as a major magnet, those kind of events for visitors. Is that the intelligence you guys have garnered?
Oh yeah, it's certainly. I mean, they did you know, a number of surveys at last year's Ellerslie in terms of just looking at you know, out of region visitation, whether it's from the rest of the South Island, obviously the North Island. We certainly know that we have visitors coming over from Australia, and of course any international visitors that are in town very much really enjoy going. So we, you know, to date, you know, we haven't done the full analysis of the sort of post-mortem of Ellerslie yet.
Sure.
But certainly the indications from both motels and hotels have been very positive.
On a personal front, what did you make of the show?
I really enjoyed it. And it was actually, I was quite lucky that this year we had some fantastic journalists over that are real horticultural experts. And one in particular, Leo Schofield from Australia, who he's written, you know, a wonderful book himself on a garden that I'm familiar with in Australia. And he, you know, is seen as a bit of a guru. So actually it was great to go around the garden show with him and get, you know, I must admit I don't know as much about gardening, so
sure,
to kind of see things through different eyes. I mean, I loved things like, you know, the fact that the botanical gardens got the big overall prize. I thought that was very exciting.
Yes.
You know,
I'll never look at fungi in the same light again, to be honest.
Yeah, and, you know, Dan Rutherford's, you know, the whole ice experience and things. I thought it was very creative.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take a break. We are with Christine Prince from Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism. We'll discuss a few more issues with Christine after the break. Do stay with us.